Hello students and welcome to your history class, and today our lecture for 7th class history is administration, society and culture under the Delhi Sultanate. So let us start. The establishment of Delhi Sultanate marked the beginning of its long dominance over northern India, which created an entity that was distinct in the Islamic world. So the entity which our sultans have created during Sultanate period in India, it was distinct from the entity which was over there in Islamic world. Why? In Islamic world, all the state affairs are being carried out by the Islamic divines, not the sultan. Is it clear? But in India, the sultans are carried out all the state affairs. In Islamic world, the sultans are ruling according to the Muslim laws. But in India, the sultans, what they are doing, they are supplementing these Muslim laws. They are framing the Muslim laws and they are framing new regulations or adding something into the Muslim law. They are not pure Muslim laws. They are not ruling according to the pure Muslim laws, and the state which is being made by them is based on worldly and secular consideration. Worldly means not based upon Muslim laws. Secular means not based on any particular religion. All religions during their time was being equal. For example, if you will see the Qutubuddin, he was giving charity to both Hindus and Muslims. That's why he's known as Lakhbaksh. Is it clear? So the entity which was formed over here, it was totally distinct from the Islamic world. Advent of Muslims in India was the beginning of a new way of life. The Muslims brought certain new traditions with them which influenced the existing lifestyle in India, philosophy of India, culture and civilization of Indian people. Now how the Muslims or Islamic world has changed the lifestyle of Indian people. If you will see the Arabic women, they were always using burqa and they were always kept in seclusion, that is away from the others. And when there is advent of Islamic culture in India, our Hindu religion also therefore started following some of the customs of the Islamic world. The ladies, especially the Hindu ladies, were also kept in seclusion. She was denied from education. She was kept in veil or parda, especially in the presence of the outsiders. Now, how our philosophy changed? We can see a clear impact on our logics, on our mathematics, on our physics, and on our speech also during the advent of Islamic people. How our culture changed? Earlier, the Hindu peoples were not having any kind of problem with the social hierarchy. But when the Muslim advent is over there, some Hindus start opposing the social hierarchy. That was the Brahman, Kshatriyas, Vash, Shudras. Is it clear? So they start opposing this one because there was so many distinctions over there, and the upper class people were always discriminating with the lower class people. So some Hindus start opposing them. Moreover, some Hindus start opposing also one thing more, that there is only one God. But our in Hindu mythology, our Hindu people believe that there are 33 crore deities in the world, in our Hindu mythology. Is it clear? So some Hindus start opposing this thing also, and they start saying that there is only one Almighty God. Is it clear? So the how our civilization changed when both the civilization got intermingled. Which civilization? Islamic civilization and Hindu civilization got intermingled. They have given birth to a new civilization. This civilization is known as Indo-Islamic culture or Indo-Islamic civilization, which was distinct from Hindu civilization and from Muslim civilization. Is it clear? But This new Indo-Islamic civilization was having the features of both the civilizations. That's why it is known as Indo-Islamic culture or Indo-Islamic civilization. Let us see the society and people during the Sultanate period. The society was being divided into four main classes. In the first class, we can see aristocratic class was over there, the ruling class was over there, nobility is over there, and high officials are over there. Aristocratic class, you know, the ruling class. Nobility, the princes of the state, the relatives of the king, the family members of the king, and the full clan of the king is known as nobility, which is having any kind of relation to the royal family. High officials, you know, the head of the revenue department, Wazir, the head of Arizal Mumalik, Senapati. Is it clear? Is it clear? So high officials are over there. In the second class, ulema and Hindu priests are over there. Ulema. Ulema is the body of mullahs, the Muslim scholars who are trained in Islam and Islamic laws, who are the interpreters of the Islam, science and doctrines and laws. Is it clear? And Hindu priests, you know. Now these people live on the, and moreover they are giving the advice to the Sultan on how to carry out the administration in accordance to the sacred law. This class of people lived on land grants given by Sultan and the gifts offered by the common people. In the third category or in third class of people, town dwellers are over there, officials are over there, merchants are over there, and artisans are over there. Now, the town dwellers consisted of officials of lower ranks, merchants, vyapari, and artisans. The person who are dexterous or skilled in particular art or craft, for example, goldsmith is over there, ironsmith is over there. Is it clear? Blacksmith is over there. Is it clear? So these are the town dwellers. In the fourth class, common people or peasantry is over there. Peasantry means farmers who are tilling the land. They form the bulk of the population and they were poor. You can say in this hierarchy, the most poor person, if you will find the common people, and peasantry was the most poor people. And they did not have enough to satisfy their needs. They did not only paid heavy taxes, they have to pay heavy taxes, land revenue, etc., but also had to bear the suffering of natural calamities. Is it clear? Moreover, this period also witnessed the rigid system of caste among Hindus. There are the Brahmin, Kshatriyas, Vaishya, Shudras, and the upper class people are always discriminating with the lower class people. The position of women deteriorated and she was denied for education and had to remain in Parda. The practice of child marriage and sati were prevalent. A Moroccan traveler, Ibn Battuta, in his book, because his full life he was an historian, he was an explorer, his full life he was on a journey, and in his end years he has written a book, and the name of book is A Gift to Those Who Contemplate the Wonders of Cities and the Marvels of the Traveling. In that book he has mentioned the horrible scenes of woman burning herself on the funeral pyre, that is the chitta, of her husband with the great beatings of drums in India. The custom of keeping women in seclusion, that is privacy, and asking them to veil, that is the ghungat, veil their faces in the presence of outsiders become widespread among upper class women. Now let us see the administration. So the Turkish state in India was militaristic and aristocratic. Militaristic means they were having very strong army which is trained. Regular training sessions were over there. A very much disciplined army was over there, and aristocratic, that all the powers, whether they are political, legal, religious, social, all the powers are being vested in one person only, and that is the Sultan. In a formal sense, the state was Islamic, and Sultan did not allow any open violation. You can see the word written over there, any open violation, but some violations are over there by Sultan only of the Islamic laws, but they did not allow the Muslim divines, that are the priests, to dictate the policy of the state. The sultans never allowed the divines to dictate the state affairs. The sultan had to supplement. Supplement means to complete, to accomplish something. The sultan has to supplement Muslim laws by framing their own regulation. Means the sultans are not working according to the Muslim laws. They are framing their own rules and regulation. That is why the historian Barani refused to consider the state in India as truly Islamic. Is it clear? But one based on worldly and secular consideration. Worldly means not spiritual, not based on Muslim laws. Secular means not based or not favoring any particular religion. Is it clear? Is it clear? All religions were equal during the Delhi Sultanate. The Sultan's office was the most important in the Sultanate, and all the political, legal, and military authority were vested in him only. The power of Sultan was based on the military force. Means the military was very strong at that time, and the power of Sultan was based on a military force only. The administration was feudal and military in character. What is feudal? I will explain you over here. And military in character, that they were having very strong army. Is it clear? So administration was military in character. Now what is feudalism? First of all, you can see the picture of Ibn Battuta. Then let us study about what is feudal system or what is feudalism. In feudalism, king is at the top. He is the head of the empire. Is it clear? And he is having a vast land, but he can't go to every nook or corner of his land to collect the revenue and to maintain law and order in his empire. So what he has done, he has divided his empire into the nobles, and he has divided his land into the nobles. Noble is the person related to the royal family only. Okay, then nobles do not know, they are also, you can say, do not know how to cultivate the land. Moreover, they want to decrease their duty of collection of the revenue. Is it clear? So what nobles have done, they have also distributed their land between the knights. Knights mean soldiers, and the soldiers are the most trustworthy person of the nobles. Is it clear? The knights or the soldiers which are most trustworthy of nobles, the nobles will distribute their land among those knights only. Is it clear? The person who has done something great in the wars and battles. Is it clear? Now knights, what they will do? They do not know how to cultivate the land, how to do the farming and agriculture. They will distribute again land in the peasants. Is it clear? Peasants are the farmers. Now farmers know how to do the agriculture. Now what they will do? They will produce food. And from that food only, the knights will collect the revenue. Now you can see the king has given land to nobles, nobles are given to the knights, knights are given to the land to the peasants. Now in return, these persons have to give something back to the previous person. So what peasants are giving? They are giving food and labor to the knights. Is it clear? What knights are giving to the nobles? They are giving the protection and military services to the nobles whenever the wars and battles are over there. Now nobles are giving to the king, they are giving the money in the form of revenue, and knights to protect the king and the kingdom from the enemies. Is it clear? So this is our feudal system. Is it clear? Now let us deal with important departments. Sultan was solely responsible for administration, security of the state, and maintenance of law and justice. The government was run under various departments. Each department was supervised by a minister or a high official. Let us study about these departments first of all. Now we will study about some of the important departments. The first important department is Diwan-e-Wazarat. The head of this department is Wazir, and the main function of our Diwan-e-Wazarat is to collect the revenue. So it's the revenue department. It will collect the revenue from all his empire. Is it clear? He will make account of the incomes and expenditures of the state. He will also advise our king about the how to collect the revenue, when to increase the revenue. Is it clear? And market orientation are being seen by this wazir only. The next department is Diwan-e-Aras, and the head of this department is Riz-e-Mumalik, means Senapati. And the main function of this department, it's a military department. What he will do, if any new soldiers are over there, their recruitment Riz-e-Mumalik will see, their salary of soldiers Riz-e-Mumalik will see, the food of the army Riz-e-Mumalik will see. Is it clear? Salary, food, weapons, horses, all those things who will see, Riz-e-Mumalik will see. Is it clear? Clear. And whenever the wars and battles are over there, this department is always ready to defend the kingdom from the enemy. The next department is Diwan-e-Risalat, and the head of this department is Chief Qazi. Is it clear? The main function of this department is of justice and education. Is it clear? First of all, the Chief Qazi will advise the king on any if any case is over there, and just when the king has to give the justice, he will take the advice of Qazi, and Qazi will give advice according to the sacred law, sacred pavitra law. Is it clear? Pavitra Kanun ke mutabik the Chief Qazi will give his advice, and king will, and it's the choice of king that whether he will go with Qazi or whether he will act accordingly. Is it clear? According to his own mind. Is it clear? And in education, if any prominent scholar is over there, so scholarship is being stipended by our Chief Qazi only. The Chief Qazi is giving the scholarship to that person if any prominent scholar is over there. Is it clear? Then the last department is Diwan-e-Insha, and the head of this department is Dabir-e-Khas. This is the postal department and spy department, the spy system, and it is directly under our Sultan. This department is directly under our Sultan. Is it clear? So this is the administration going over at the central level. And what kind of administration is over there at village level? There are three persons. One is Muqaddam, one is Munsif, and one is Patwari. Muqaddam is head of the village. Is it clear? The village administration is administered by Muqaddam only. Munsif, he is the accountant of the village. What are the income of the village? What is the expenditure of the village? When to collect the revenue? From whom to collect the revenue? All these decisions Munsif will take, and he will help the Muqaddam. Is it clear? The next person is Patwari. He is having the land records, and according to these land records only the revenue is given to the you can say revenue is being over there on a particular person, and our Munsif is collecting that revenue. Is it clear? Ikta system and economy. Beside the land revenues, the main taxes which were being levied on the common persons, they were jizya, and it was being levied or imposed on non-Muslims only. The kharaj, it is a kind of land tax, and for example, if suppose that one farmer is over there and he has grown something in his fields, and there is a land tax, it was 1/3 of the total produce. Next tax is zakat, and this tax is being imposed on Muslims. It is, I think, 1/10. And the last tax is khams, a tax on the booty captured in war. Suppose that one battle is over there and one party has won the battle. What will be there? The soldiers of that party will plunder the city of the defeated persons. Is it clear? and they will collect some booty, some money, is it some gold, silver, whatever they will got over there, and this things is known as war booty. There was 1/5 of tax on this war booty on the soldiers, which was being collected by our central government, or you can say our sultan. Is it clear? Now we will discuss about the Ikta system. The Ikta system was the system of granting revenue from a piece of land or a village to an officer instead of paying him a cash salary. Is it clear? So our king is not giving any cash salary to any officer. He is granting revenue to that person from a piece of land or a village. Is it clear? Now under this system, an officer Iqtadar would collect revenue from his territory. Now what was under this system? Suppose that a king is over there and he has divided his territory into 20 parts. These 20 parts or 20 territories are known as Iqtas. Now the head of this Iqta will known as Iqtadar. Now the first prominent function of this Iqtadar is to collect the revenue from that land, from that territory. Is it clear? Now first function, he would have to keep a certain amount from that revenue as his salary, and another part of that revenue was spent on maintaining soldiers for sultan. Is it clear? This was the first function of our Iqta. First function to collect the revenue, then the second function, he will keep some certain amount as his salary, and some part of that revenue was spent on maintaining soldiers for sultan. This is our feudal system. Is it clear? Now sultan is not maintaining any kind of army. Who is maintaining army? Our Iqtadars are maintaining army for the sultan. Suppose that a sultan is over there and he has divided his kingdom into 20 parts. Is it clear? Now sultan is not maintaining any kind of army. Who is maintaining army? Iqtadars are maintaining army. Now our sultan need not to take any kind of tension for those army. Is it clear? Everything, whether it's a salary of the soldiers, whether it's a dress for the soldiers, whether it's for the food for the soldiers, is it clear? Weapons, horses, whatever is over there for the soldiers, who is taking the pain? Our Iqtadars are taking the pain. King is not taking any kind of tension for the soldiers. King is not maintaining any army. Now suppose that a king has divided his full territory, full empire into 20 Iqtas or 20 territories. Is it clear? And he is having 20 Iqtadars over there. Now he has assigned that each Iqtadar has to maintain 1000 soldiers for the sultan. Is it clear? Not 20 Iqtadars over there, 20 into 1000, that is the 20,000. Now whenever the war or battle is over there, now this soldier, this sultan is having 20,000 of army with him. Is it clear? All the Iqtadars will help sultan at the time of emergency. Now our king is not taking any kind of pain for these 20,000 people. Who is taking the pain? The Iqtadars, who is maintaining, who are administering the different Iqtas. Is it clear? It's a type of feudal system. Now the next function of our Iqtadars, they had to pay a fixed amount annually to sultan. Now the sultan will not have to take revenue from each nook and corner of his empire. Who is collecting the revenue? Iqtadars are collecting, and they are paying a fixed amount annually to sultan also. The officer had to keep account of his income and expenditure. Now our officer Iqtadars had to keep account of his incomes and expenditure with them. Anytime king with his revenue department or with his vizier can come and check the accounts of those Iqtadars. Now Iqtadars are also responsible for maintenance of law and order in his territory. Now our king is having no tension, no worries. He has not to keep law and order in his territory. Who is maintaining? Our Iqtadars are maintaining law and order with the help of the army. Is it clear? Now our king is totally free, and this is the Iqta system. It's a type of feudal system only. Is it clear? Now we'll see the economy. The economy of Sultanate was dependent upon inland and overseas trade. Delhi, Daulatabad, Lahore and Lucknow were great trading centers. Delhi, Daulatabad, it's in Madhya Pradesh, Lahore, in Pakistan, and Lucknow, it's in West Bengal. India developed trade relations with Europe, Malaya, China, Central Asia, Afghanistan, Persia, Tibet and Bhutan. Trade was encouraged by Indian rulers. The roads and coins played an important role in flourishing of trade. Tanka, a silver coin started by Iltutmish, was widely used in markets. Agriculture was the main occupation of the people of India. During the reign of Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad bin Tughlaq, the land tax was raised to 50% of the produce from land. The chief industries were textiles, sugar, hardware and paper manufacture. Now in our next video we will study about the cultural developments during Sultanate period. Thank you.